This is Julie Cohen, and if you're watching live, this is Work Life Leader Live, and I'm thrilled you're here. We've been on a little bit of a break for the past couple months, mostly because there's a lot going on in my work and life and role as a leader, but want to welcome you back. We have a great show today, as you can see by the heading. It's Navigating Adversity, Bouncing Back from Expected Change. And I'll be introducing my guest in a minute. But for those of you who are first-time viewers, Work Life Leader is a video conversation with smart people about interesting topics on the intersection of work, life, and leadership. I am the CEO of Work Life Leader, and we are a leadership development training and executive coaching company. So with that, with no further ado, I want to introduce my guest, Jay Rombach. Hi, Jay.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. Well, I'm thrilled you're here, and I'm going to introduce you formally in just a few seconds. But
Okay.
I think our topic is really timely. So I know there's people who are ready to dive in. And for those of you who are just tuning in, please comment throughout. If you're here on Friday, October 1st at 12 p.m. Eastern US, please say hello and put hashtag live in the comments so we know you're here watching now. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Jay Rombach, and I'm putting on my new reading glasses. What do you think?
Oh, very nice.
Because I want to make sure I get your bio right. Everything else I don't need to read, but those things I need to get right. So Jay Rombach is an accomplished human resources, talent management, and leadership coaching executive with more than 30 years experience in complex, customer-centric, and global business environments. He thrives on inspiring people to reinvent themselves by embracing change to create the most positive future. So what a wonderful mission.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, that's great.
So let's see if anybody's watching again. So welcome, everyone. Please let us know you're here by saying hello in the comments and where you are watching from. Jay, why don't you tell us where you're dialing in from?
Well, I am dialing in from Miami, Florida, and normally I would say sunny and beautiful Miami, Florida, but we are getting killed with rain today. So,
okay.
But Miami, Florida, the tropics, the mix of sun and rain.
Got it. Well, so let's get started. So, so this is we're both smiling, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. And, the topic we're talking about is around adversity. So, we always start this with an icebreaker. That's one of
sure.
For people who know me personally, I'm the queen of icebreakers. Every party we have at our home, I make
good idea.
Kind of fun things. So, but again, just to really kind of warm up for this topic, can you share an experience where you experienced adversity and what was an impact from
it? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's like right now. So I unfortunately am between jobs, Julie, for the first time in over 30 years as an HR executive. Just a victim of the times and the pandemic. And so, a long time, but it's a blessing and a curse. But the adversity is there. And so what does Jay do next? And so the impact has been a lot of uncertainty, a fair amount of fear, and just kind of what do I do? And I've been around the block a long time in professional settings, and it's like, so what do I do now? So with that, again, is a blessing and a curse. One, I don't know, but two, the opportunities kind of excite me, and I think I'm onto something with my business that excites me.
Well, that's awesome. So we're going to dig into that in throughout our conversation together with some interesting ways to think about that. And Jay's going to share his thoughts, his experience, and you can see by the name of his business, Reinventing You. I think we'll probably get on to some of that also. So if you are watching, we'd love to hear from you. If you've faced a situation with adversity, and what was an impact for you? Now I'm going to share, and before we went live, I was talking with Jay, is that, I said, wow, I'm really pretty fortunate that I haven't faced a lot of adversity, professionally. I've been on my own for it'll be 21 years next month. And so from a professional standpoint, I have been very fortunate. Actually, the biggest adversity that, that I can recall, that actually had a personal and professional connection was when I was in my 20s, mid 20s, when one of my closest friends was killed in a motorcycle accident, and it was very devastating, and that was 30 some years ago.
Sure.
But it was like the first time I dealt with a death that wasn't an old, like my old grandparents. Again, not that it wasn't that those weren't sad, but it was a tragic death, and it knocked me out for at least a couple weeks, if not a month, professionally. And so I couldn't go to work, and so that impact and was significant. Personally, having to deal with losing a friend in that way, and then professionally, I was fairly, again, I was a young professional, and I was a pretty intense go-getter back then, as I am now. And so the idea of just the next day, I just couldn't leave my bed. So it's like, I'm not going to work, and kind of managing that and figuring it out as a young professional, how to, navigate, a work-life issue very early on. At that point, I didn't know my career and my business would be called work-life leader. But, that's something that really stood out as something that, So, and then, and, looking back on it, obviously it was a devastating time in my life, and it built resilience. There definitely was, just a new way of how I had to look at my life. So it was a pretty significant situation.
If I may, Julie, I mean, you look back at that and you tell it so vividly, like it was yesterday, because it was such a profound, personal, tragic experience for you. But then if you connect the dots going back, you still look at it that way, but how you've progressed professionally and personally has likely been very significant because of that and how you got through it.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely still, has an impact on my life today.
Sure.
It will always, I think. But yeah, so let's start looking again. If this is, it is Friday, October 1st at a little afternoon Eastern. If you're here watching live and you're shy, don't hesitate. We often have people comment. There's no right or wrong comments. We'd love to hear from you if you're dealing with some adversity, currently professional or personal. Please share what it is if you're willing to, and let us know how it's impacting you. Or if you have questions. Now we're going to dive into, we have a bunch of questions, and Jay and I are going to talk. So the first question is just around adversity and dealing with it. And when we talked previously, it can be like a roller coaster. And I'd like to just start talking about what are some things people should keep in mind when facing either, a really challenging professional situation, which we can start at that place, which obviously you're dealing with, but it obviously also impacts you personally. So what are some, let's start with the big ideas. What are some things people should keep in mind, Jay?
Well, I would start with saying what they shouldn't do. And that is, you shouldn't panic. You can't panic, and you shouldn't do it alone. I think there's a tendency, and this is human nature, right, Julie? It's like, when bad things happen, you tend to okay, the sky is falling. This is the worst thing that could ever happen, and that's just human nature. I think what's so important and growing importance over time, and especially in these days, is you have to find a way to ground yourself and to be able to step back from it, as hard as it is. And not panic.
Okay.
Right.
So what does that look like? You said step back. I mean, I can think of what that might be for me, but I don't know if you want to share your situation or just in general, advice you would give. What is that stepping back and not panicking?
Yeah, the disclaimer I'll say is a lot I speak are in general terms. So there's always exceptions, and everybody's a different circumstance. But what you see, like predominantly is a lot of times people they react and they panic and they go to the next thing. Okay. I lost my job. I got to go get another job. This relationship is not what I got to go get another relationship. I didn't get promoted to this job. It's not fair. I'm going to leave the company. So a lot of the reaction is to panic. And maybe there's another word for it, but just a reaction that's like, I've got to do something and I've got to make this right. Right. The other thing that people tend to do is a lot of people do is they tend to withdraw, and that's why it says don't do it alone. If you withdraw, then you're only subject to your own beliefs and what you have experienced in your life and how to deal with something like this, which may not be the right way, right? So I would so say things like I wouldn't do, so to be grounded is to, and I know, listen, and this is why I'm so interested in this. I'm pursuing this, is that there's techniques and there's things that you can do to ground yourself, to accept the emotions instead of trying to cope with them or ignore them, and just come to a point where, okay, I can take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. I'm a good person. I'm ready now to decide what's next.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. So don't panic. Don't do it alone. What you described there, that struck me was the issue of don't. uh, I heard you say kind of don't make any brash decisions
Yeah.
too immediately. So, um, like you talked about the promotion. I mean, I think that for a lot of people that is significant adversity. They were waiting for a promotion. They were due the promotion. They've been told they were getting the promotion, and they don't get it. And um, I've had clients who've done that. They've called me afterwards. I
Yeah.
didn't get this, and why? And I just can't stay there. Um, and so it's really important to understand if if there's something adverse that happens, what's in your best interest versus what might be something that you are reactive, not thinking through what you're doing. And so it's important to pause, and that's hard to do in those kind of heightened situations.
It's very hard to do. You're right. And so that's where, in this times, I hope to be able to help. I know a lot of other people are trying to help. But another thing, Julie, is adversity doesn't have to be the big mountain. It doesn't have to be you lose a job or you lose a marriage. Adversity could be your coworker did you wrong. Somebody stabs you in the back. So there's these adversities and little things, that potentially little things as well as big things that are obstacles and we stumble on.
Right.
And so that's where you have to avoid, and we've seen it over and over, the reactions. If the coworker's wronged you, you fire off the email and it's like, oh, a day later it's like, oof, maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? So it's just adversity covers the whole gamut of things that keep us and disrupt us from our normal
Right.
positive way of doing things.
Well, and I think another thing to think about is adversity, like the situations you're describing, involve another person. So someone's behavior may impact you and, feel, disruptive or, threatening.
That's a good point.
Or, it can be something that happens, outside of work that impacts work, or at work that impacts life outside of work, or like you said, there's no one size fits all to this,
No.
but it is important to, it's funny, the issue you said, firing off the email. My personality style is someone who fires off emails. And I've learned over the years, because fortunately I have a husband who is the opposite of that. And he taught me the 24-hour rule.
Yeah.
In that when I am agitated or triggered or pissed off, if I'm blunt, it's never a good time to respond. It's never a good time to react. You need to step back and respond. So I want to pause for a minute because I see we have some guests. Hi, Bill Hyman. I'm glad to hear you're tuned in and listening to the conversation and that you think it's very interesting. We are talking about adversity and managing adversity, bouncing back from unexpected change. And our guest is Jay Rombach, who is a veteran HR executive and
Hi.
owner of Reinventing You. And we were just talking about that adversity can really run a continuum. And there's no one right or wrong adversity. It's if something happens that has a negative impact on you, that's adversity. And so we're not here to elevate or minimize. I think Jay and I both shared some fairly, heightened, kind of larger life-changing situations.
Sure.
But I'll actually share something that, since we are talking about that adversity can fit into a lot of spaces. I'll remember when it was probably I was 3 or 4 years into my business, and I had a lot of interactions with a large company. And it was my first really big, it was the first really big deal. Big deal meaning like a large scale deal, not, hey, it's a big deal. It literally was a large deal that I was trying to close, and all of the signs looked like it was happening. We even started talking dates and, when we were going to plan some work. And, the people in the organization seemed to really like me. All the signs were pointing into the right direction, and it would have made a huge difference. Again, I was early in my business, and so it would have made a huge difference to my year and my visibility, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't get it. And it was, I was floored. Like, I went into that, I did not expect that I wouldn't get it, like how the progress was. And so I was like, I'm done. I'm never going to try to sell this kind of work. I remember leaving my office that day and just not wanting to, like, I'm done. And so, again, it was one deal. And, I've had many, many deals now that, have worked, and, some that don't. But at that moment, because it was a first time, it felt really challenging.
Yeah, very traumatic experience as a new business owner, right? And what did you just do? You reacted, right? Yeah. And the emotions swelled, and yeah.
And I needed some distance. So I again, it's funny how, how vivid it was. I think it was a Friday, and I just left my office, and I don't think I thought about work until Monday. I probably commiserated with my husband, and
Sure.
but I was like, I don't even want to walk in my office, which normally I'm in my office all the time. And so I know I needed some distance. And then, I kind of got it into a perspective. But yeah, it was very heightened. So let's pause and see if anyone who's watching, I see we have some folks here watching us, would love to hear if you've experienced adversity, if you're facing it now. I mean, I assume many of us are facing adversity now. Just in the past 18 months, life during a pandemic for all of us, has brought all new levels of adversity. But so kind of building on, I kind of explained my situation about that deal. How can one rebuild confidence after adversity? Because I definitely did not feel confident after that. I was like, okay, I thought it was great. They like me. So what? Maybe I suck. Excuse my French again. What do you think about how does one rebuild confidence?
Listen, I feel really strongly about that, because this is the core, right, of the issue, right? And I really feel that you have to recover yourself first. And I lead with my story and what's happened to me. And I'll tell you, in my vulnerability, I'm still working through it. But I have confidence and knowledge now that I could navigate through it. So how do you get confidence? You have to recover yourself, because when you get faced with adversity, I call it punched in the gut.
Yeah.
It's you feel, I mean, and listen, Julie, it doesn't matter if you are new in the workplace or like myself, over 30 years as a executive and professional. You wonder if you're still worthy enough, if you're still capable enough to stay in the game. It's human nature. I mean, it's like, okay, am I no longer relevant? Am I, those are all the things that you face with. So the question is, how do you regain the confidence? And I believe it starts with that. You have to come to accept that you've accomplished an awful lot, and that you are worthy, You are capable. This doesn't change you as a person and all the things that you've done. If there are learnings like any other time, you learn from it and you grow from it. But you've accomplished a lot of things. And so you got to get, I keep saying grounded. You just got to, you've got to accept what you can't control and focus on and identify clearly what you can control. And do that with a state of, I am okay, I am worthy, and you know what? I've got a lot to offer. I firmly believe, Julie, you've got to get there first because so many times people jump to the next thing to recover. I'll get the next job, I'll get the next whatever, and that'll make me feel better.
Yeah, yeah.
I flip the narrative. I'm thinking you should flip the narrative.
Yeah. So it's interesting. There's a new comment that just came in, and this LinkedIn user, for some reason, I see some people's names. I can't see your name. But the comment you made, if you want to put after I read your comment, if you want to put your name in the chat box so I know who you are, I can thank you on the recording. But this LinkedIn user said, taking the next step and putting yourself back out there, you must trust yourself again.
You must trust yourself and believe in yourself. Yeah, I think they're very closely connected, but you have to believe in yourself. Absolutely. And that's the point I'm making.
Yeah. I think, it was interesting about learning. So there's a piece of taking stock. If I share my example of losing that big deal, over, time, I learned some things that not every client is going to be the right client for me. And I also, and these took some time. I also found, a different attitude that there are enough clients out there for me and my business growth that, every client isn't going to, doesn't have to close. And then that all relationships are good relationships. So any interaction I have with a potential client, it might not be this deal, but it will be another deal, which actually, in fact, like a year or two later, I ended up doing, work with them. So that was Robert Weiner who shared that post. Thank you, Robert. For some reason, your name is not coming up with that, but that was great. So we are talking about adversity, how to handle it. We're talking about flipping the dialogue, really paying attention to your own thoughts and kind of what maybe kind of messages you're telling yourself that may prevent you from moving forward in a more confident way. So let's see. Let's talk about. We talked about the pandemic. I mentioned that. So I see that as having affecting everyone. You obviously were working in an organization during the pandemic. This impacted, your career path. What did you see, and what do you see, other professionals who are actually just working, who are working for organizations? What do you see that the adversity they're facing? And I know that's a very global question, but any specifics that come out and lessons learned that you've observed?
Yeah, I listen, I appreciate that. And I'll focus on the question in just a second. I want to just anecdotally to say that we don't know the long-term impacts of what's happened the last year and a half. We don't know. But I think something's out there, we're going to see. And for instance, the school age kids that lost a whole year of social interaction, who knows? Now, that's not my realm of expertise, but it's a question. So coming back to professionals and individuals, Julie, we lost connection, and we're learning to do the Zoom and all these things much better. I'm on it all day long, as I'm sure you are as well. But, we didn't. We were always used to, and I was used to 30 plus years going to the office, meeting people by the coffee machine, meeting people and all those kinds of things. And we lost connection, and we lost connection with people that we're friends with. And I meant really interaction. I mean, we can still call, but you still got to pick up the phone, arrange the call, and do it, right? As opposed to you're naturally there at the office. Right. So the point is, we really lost connection, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Connection with other humans as we should know is one of the top things for well-being and that you could possibly have is you have connections, you feel comfortable, even if you're an introvert, knowing that you have connections. And the pandemic, really took that away, where people were then kind of like isolated physically in their home base, and that's a big thing. And so now we're coming back to this hybrid type of solution. And then how do you manage that? And that's why every article you see these days is how do you manage the hybrid workforce? And the reality is a lot of people are out there trying to teach people how to do it, but nobody knows because we haven't done it yet.
Right. So we just got another comment from Bill Hyman. Part of believing in yourself is to surround yourself with colleagues and friends who value your gifts and talents. So you mentioned earlier, Jay, about not doing this alone. Do you want to go there? What does not doing it alone?
I think that's a great. Listen, at some level it sounds harsh, but the reality. I mean, what the quote? I can't remember who the famous person. Might have been Einstein or whatever, that says they can tell who you are by the 5 people that are closest to you. And so the challenging part is, because the person was right, is that if someone is sucking your energy and being overly codependent and not the best influence, how do you kind of manage that? How do you break through that? And there's lots of challenges to that, but I think the point is you need to do it at some level. So, but it's exactly right. You have to surround yourself with people who not only believe in what you do, because you want diversity in thinking, but you want people that are growth mindset, that are, we're going to get through this. You know what? And we can take it, punch it in the gut. We'll have each other's back, but we're going to go. As opposed to the sky is falling, the world is ending, and we all know those people are around as well. So great observation.
Yeah, and so with that, I think what I hear from the work-life intersection in what you're talking about is being really mindful as you make choices moving beyond the adversity. So the people you surround yourself with matter. So, that's friends, colleagues, people that, are kind of in your social and professional circle. And then also getting support for a lot of people, whether it's, and neither one of us are psychologists. So, if it's an emotional challenge and you need emotional support, finding that. If it's a job and if it's a job search issue, finding, someone who's a career counselor, coach, advisor. If it's, again, the name of your business, and we're not selling either of our businesses here, but, about reinvention, and you're not sure where to go. It's, talking with a coach and a consultant to see opportunities if you can't see them yourselves. Now, many people can navigate that themselves, which is great, but it's being very deliberate of knowing your strengths and needs, and not being shy or afraid of seeking out support if you can get that. So I do think that's really critical. So I'm just going to reintroduce our topic. We're talking about navigating adversity, bouncing back from unexpected change. If you're watching live, it is Friday, October 1st at almost 12:30 Eastern. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've faced adversity professionally or personally before, how you've overcome it, some strategies that helped you, maybe some thoughts that you were facing when you were going through it. And we'd love to talk about those. And if you have any questions about this topic, Jay and I'd be happy to play with them. We may not have the perfect answer, but as coaches and consultants, we can probably help you come to some conclusions. So,
and by the way, Julie, on this topic, if anybody says they have the perfect answer, walk away.
So why do you say that? Tell me more about
Listen,
that.
we're navigating uncertainty, whether you're in a job that's your business has now changed totally or your personal life. And so, yeah, there are people, like you and I and maybe some others on the call that are kind of making it uh, part of what we do to learn and to help. But you don't have all the answers. But what you do is you have an open mind and that you're looking towards what can be as opposed to woe is me. I think that's very, very, very important. But nobody knows. Nobody could possibly know the answers.
Right. And so, and I think that's the point. I think, one of the bottom lines of this kind of situation is one has to find out the answers for, themselves, right? We need to figure out what works. And that's why, kind of having that supportive people, a supportive community, a supportive environment around you helps
Yeah.
facilitate that. So let's go. You mentioned mindset earlier in one of your comments. And I think we've touched on that in multiple ways, but let's talk a little bit more about mindset. Again, in my example, I shared my mindset was like the immediate mindset was I'm done. I'm never going to be successful. It was very negative, and I kind of wanted to just retreat. That changed over probably a couple days of the incident, but is there a general mindset I know you talked about a growth mindset? Are there other approaches or ways to look at any kind of adversity that serves individuals even before they get to that point?
Yeah, and Julie, I appreciate that question. I got to tell you, I could spend a whole week answer on this topic because it is the basis of uh, everything. Not to be overly dramatic here, but mindset is everything. And you to have a mindset that's open-minded and that says, I can get through this. Maybe I don't know how. Maybe I'm hurting now, but I know it's temporary, and I can get through this. That's a mindset. The challenge is that our mindsets are from our upbringing, and it's things that we learned and were taught and observed years ago when we were tiny, and subconscious to us a lot of times right now. And so, but in many cases, it's not correct. Our beliefs and our mindset maybe isn't correct. So the reason why I mention that is if you start to look at, okay, what am I facing now? Okay, this is very, very difficult, but you can get through it. You are capable. But if your mindset is bitterness and that's your belief system is revenge and this is not right, and I am, and that eats away at you, like they said about having something like this kind of eat at you and not being able to get over it. It's like pouring the poison and drinking it yourself. Right. So it's like you got to be able to, but mindset is so important because the mindset has to be open to that change is possible and that you are capable and you can get through the other side if you do some of the things that we're learning to do that put you in a more favorable position. But mindset is everything because it could shut you off if your mindset is, nope, I was wronged and I'm not going to get over this.
Right. Yeah. And so that, again, we talked about the growth mindset, and it's growth mindset versus fixed mindset that you don't have autonomy, that you can't change things, that like the woe is me, this is who I am, as opposed to this situation happened to me. So I think that's a really important point. So then when you have your mindset, let's say you've done the work and you have the right mindset, and you've even learned from the situation, which to me that's like we're kind of building kind of the the pathway. Acknowledge the situation, learn from it, work on your mindset. This is resilience. There's resilience right now. There's a couple buzzwords right now in HR and training and development and leadership, and resilience is one of them. Mindset is another one of them. And so then it's so that's a great skill. That's a great interview question. Tell me about a time when you dealt with adversity and how you managed it. You want to be able to answer that question if you're looking for a job, and
Sure.
and you want to be able to answer it. People want, employers want people who are resilient and who can learn from adversity and move forward, not who are, devastated and, stuck and looking backwards.
Right.
And so, what's after that? So let's say your mindset is ready, is in a good place, you've learned, and you're looking forward.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on next steps there?
Sure. I mean, where my thinking is, and my methodology for what I'm doing professionally going forward is once you have accepted what you need to accept, and which is mainly what you can't control, right? Then you know that and then I would suggest you go through like a strengths exercise. What are your strengths? And there's a methodology called appreciative inquiry that I'm well versed in, that I believe in quite a bit, which is, what is the best I've done? Because if you look back, we've all done some pretty good things. We don't give ourselves a lot of credit, right? Because, I just lost my job. This is horrible. But you have to go back and identify, what did it look like? What were the settings? What that you really made a difference and you really brought your best self. And so with that and with your strengths, notice I'm not talking anything about weaknesses, right? Because you can that. Then you start saying, okay, what are those? And you clearly define what those are. And that's your battle gear to go forward. Yeah. And that's what I suggest is next.
Great. So let's just see if anyone else is here and has comments or questions. We're talking about navigating adversity, and we've been building kind of a model. And now, Jay just shared, the moving forward is with kind of like I don't know if I imagine almost like a shield of your strengths. Like you've started doing the work, your strengths, and then you start determining what your next steps are. Whether you want to, I guess, I don't know how much you want to share your situation, but just obviously from your title, veteran HR executive and owner of Reinventing You. So you've had this situation, and now you are branching out to, an entrepreneurial venture, which is a big shift for you. And, I'm sure you've dealt with that that mindset change, the looking at your strengths, the self-assessment, and the learning. And, as we, get close to, I was gonna say we're going to get close to wrapping up, but we've got a comment. Here's a great question. So here's a question for you, us. Is there a way to also work with the uncertainty as you look at your strengths and best self?
Yeah. I think that's the answer is in the question, but it's a great question, because the only way you're going to manage through uncertainty is the belief that at a certain level, you're going to figure it out. And you know what? You can figure out what's the right thing today and find out tomorrow. Maybe it's not. There's something better, and you switch. All right. You're agile, you're fluid, you're resilient. But it's based on what your strengths and a mindset that says, okay, I don't have all the answers. And you know what? I'm going to be vulnerable. I picked the wrong path. I know today, not yesterday, that I should go this way. Right. And so that's what I really think is the way through it. You got to be fluid, and uncertainty is uncertainty, and it's not going to end.
Right. Everything is uncertain. So I don't know if this is still Robert again. If it is, I'll talk directly to you. If it's not, you can tell me who I am talking to about this. But, everything that, I think Jay said is spot on. I think one thing might also serve you is to do Jay talked about a strengths inventory, which is really super. You may want to look back and look at other times where you navigated uncertainty. Find 2 or 3 points in the past where you did navigate through it successfully, and look at what was going on and what muscles you used. Because, what Jay's, that piece that everything is uncertain is true. It's just when things are going well, we don't think about, oh, this is uncertain. you use your tools and resources and, everything you've built around you. So it's when you hit that point of adversity, you're kind of in a heightened, you kind of have a heightened adversity radar, because, oh, this just happened, now it can happen again.
Yeah.
And it can. And, for me, if I use my example of, losing deals, that was through, 3 years into my business. Now, every deal I look at, okay, what's the percentage? Is this a 50% likelihood, or 20%, or 90%? And then, now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to lose a certain percent of deals, just because that's the nature of business. But that took time to get there, and,
Sure.
learning from those experiences.
Yeah, exactly right.
So, Robert, I hope we answered that question, or at least addressed the topic in a way that makes sense for you. So with that, as we're actually coming up to our wrap up time, time goes quickly.
Yeah.
I always like to end with what I call the big rocks, which are the main ideas. Like, if you'd have to put, one, two, or three, important takeaways that you think, our current viewers, and, people watch these recordings at all different times. So, people who are watching this later,
Sure.
as what things they need to think about when navigating adversity. What would be those, one, two, or three main points, big rocks to keep in mind?
Okay, and I'll answer that, and then I'll mention one other thing I think is important. So the first thing is, you don't react. Emotions are going to happen. We all react to certain things in different ways. But what I'm saying is, don't react, and move and do something, right? Accept your emotions, and then find a way to kind of like take a breath, whatever way that is, step back, get grounded, accept what has happened, as hard as it is, whatever process that is. That's the big part. And the other thing is this uncertainty, and sometimes we're going to have to be very intentional about reconnecting with people. And because it doesn't come natural when you're not at an office anymore, or you're not going to events where you met friends all the time. We'll do some of that, but not as much as before. So you have to be intentional about that, and it's easy not to be, because it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So you have to learn different ways to navigate through it. So it's acceptance. It's knowing that what you're going to is uncertain. And the one thing I mentioned, I think it's really important, Julie, and why I've chosen to kind of go into this work is there's still so many generations in the workforce today that you still have a percentage of individuals, I'm speaking generally, that are stoic and say, okay, so what? You lost your job. Just suck it up. Just be tough, and then go, and find the next thing. That's still a mentality around that, where you have the younger generation. It's like, what do I learn? What do I do? So there's a lot of that. So the point is that, to me, if a high level executive is burnout, and I know many of them are, they're not going to go to the president of the company and say, hey, I'm kind of burnt out. It's, some people may, but a lot of people don't, because there's this stigma, right? And so I think there's some value in an independent voice, an independent view, into why I chose to go this path, because I know that there's that stigma there, that it's still a sign of weakness to say, God, you know what? I'm struggling. I'm losing sleep. My family relationships have suffered. People aren't very open about that, but it's all part of the same equation.
Great. Well, I think that's a really positive way to end our conversation. Jay, thank you so much. How can people reach you if they want to learn more about you?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, it's my company is called Reinventing You, and the website and social platforms should be live in about a week or so. But it's J@reinventingyou.biz, B-I-Z.
Yeah.
And
we'll put a link. We'll put a link to that in the comments on LinkedIn. So people are watching this on can watch this on 3 platforms, but we'll put the comments. So visit us on LinkedIn, and I assume people can find you on LinkedIn also if they want to.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Again, I'm on my social profile. you'll see the business page will be in development over the next week or so. But yeah, if anybody wants to talk about the topic, anything, just to talk, then feel free. It's just something that's important to all of us, and I'm happy that we're acknowledging it openly. That it's a big deal, and we're going to have adversity at some point in some levels, all of us.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your insight. I want to thank people who tuned in live, and if you're watching this, when it's not live, thank you for watching and joining in. And you can leave comments anytime, even if it's not live, and I will be answering them. And if there's anything we need to get Jay involved, we'll tag him and get him here. But thank you. And before we say goodbye, just want to let you know we have a bunch of, as I mentioned, I kind of had a hiatus this summer because of some personal adversity, but I'm back and hoping to be broadcasting as much as possible. So please stay tuned here. Some of our upcoming topics include, we're going to be looking at change management. We're going to be looking at the skills of project management and why everyone needs to be a project manager. And let me think. We're going to have one session coming up on group coaching. We have a bunch of neat stuff in the pipeline. And lastly, if there's a topic you want to hear about, please put that in the comments at any time. And I can find people who are experts on this and talk, or if you think you're an expert on something and you want to be on here, let me know and we'll talk too. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. And thanks for watching Work Life Leader Live.
Thank you.